better than myself.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. We're starting day 2 of the Global E-commerce Leaders Forum, or GELF. Again, want to thank everybody for making the big move, the big stride to join us. Heard so many great comments from people about how great it was to be back, just seeing everybody again. And again, want to thank the team in the back. Obviously, as we mentioned yesterday, we're trying to make this as multimedia as possible, so these guys have been super. And big shout out to the Commerce Next team. A lot of stuff going on behind the scenes to make this happen, so thanks to them. So as long as I'm doing the big thanks roll here, Matthew has been a leader within the GELF community for as long as I can remember. I remember the first time I met Matthew. He was with a different company at that time. It wasn't quite as polished as Globally. And Matthew just rolled in. We grabbed 2 stools and we talked for a half hour. No rehearsal, nothing. So we have rehearsed this one extensively, hours and hours of rehearsal time. But I'm going to let Jonathan also kind of take control here today. So I'll be lobbing some questions in and weighing in. I think one thing, as you can see from the title, is we're talking a lot more about the importance of data. We got into this conversation the other day about global data developers and this idea that pulling data from all different sources is a really important thing to look at. So this idea of global D2C, global e-commerce, is something that you're going to hear throughout today. So Jonathan, Matthew, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. But yeah, why don't we start with you, Matthew, and then we'll learn a little bit more about Marquee Brands.
Very good. Matthew Merrilees, CEO responsible for the North America business here at Globally, based out of our HQ here in New York. So good to be here. Good to see some faces, that's for sure.
Matthew?
So thank you for the opportunity today. I am the president of digital ventures at Marquee, and really responsible for building scale and expertise and a strong digital community across all of the Marquee portfolio, with accountability on portfolio, processes, platforms, and people. Prior to joining Marquee about 2.5 years ago, I was the president of Saks Off Fifth in the Gilt Group, and then in addition spent 20 years at Lord & Taylor and Hudson's Bay in many merchandise leadership roles.
Awesome. So I think we have a video.
We do.
So it takes some work to become driven by digital. Tell us a little bit about some of the transformation we talked about on some of the prep calls we had.
Sure. So Marquee Brands was founded in 2014 to become the world's most creative brand accelerator, and we believe we're doing exactly that. So Marquee, what we do is we partner at the acquisition level with the brand partners in order to meet their unique objectives. We simply just build brands, where we're focusing on our direct-to-consumer platform and working hand-in-hand with all of our best-in-class operators in order to coordinate the global distribution amongst all of our products. So, we really look at our business in 4 quadrants. Our first quadrant is all about home, which is anchored by Martha Stewart, Emerald Lagasse, and Sur La Table. Our second quadrant is all about the mom, and that's focused on motherhood, maternity, and also A Pea in the Pod. Our third is our active and outdoor, which is anchored by Dakine and Body Glove. And our fourth is our men's and women's lifestyle, which is anchored by BCBG, Ben Sherman, and Bruno Magli. You know, we're really living in interesting times. There's never been a more period of, I'd say, profound and rapid change. For us and for everybody, it's either you evolve or you'll perish. So we really wanted to focus on 6 words over at Marquee, which is to be consumer-centric, digital-first, and DTC-led. But for us, that's just more than words just on a piece of paper. So everything we do at Marquee is always putting the consumer at the center of everything. And everybody at the Marquee organization is data-inspired. And we use all of that proprietary data around our technology platform to build customer experiences and to better monetize the customer. We're really focused on what we would describe as our 5C model. So the first one being is all about content. So how are we thinking about educational? How are we thinking about storytelling and certainly editorial? The second would really be about community. We need to all be thinking about more user-generated content, being purpose-driven, being peer-to-peer. Our consumer, how relevant are we? How are we thinking about all of those targeted communications? The fourth being about curations. There's way too much clutter out there, and we need to cut through it and find those solutions. And then commerce, knowing that the mobile phone is your flagship, and not only marketing to where the customer is today, but where he or she is going.
Yeah, and we wrapped up yesterday actually with the innovation showcase where we talked about progressive web apps and the importance of mobile. So, yeah, let's head on to the Global E slide here. So tell us a little bit about how you guys got going, how the relationship started. Matthew, I know you guys have had quite the year, and congratulations on kind of your entrance into the public world, so to speak.
Sure. No, yeah. So Global E is a public company, recent to this year as of May. But no, I think when you look at the business as a whole, what we're doing is helping brands break down barriers to international, right? Whether you have inventory position in a specific market, multiple markets, truly a global approach in the way that we assist our brands on many different levels, right? For brands that are starting in international, that are really looking to jump into the world of international, to those brands that are highly sophisticated, that are looking to patch in inventories all throughout the world. So I think as you look at what Globally's doing and the relationship, obviously, with Marquee, which has been great, it's one that's evolved, right? It's one that started off in a specific journey, and it's taken off, and it's really taking and evolving into a really sophisticated arrangement that we have together. So from our approach, it's been one that's been phenomenal, and of course, we're helping brands in many different segments just conquer international.
So when Matthew and I first met, and this was before you were on the Global E team, most of what we saw at Guelph was retailers, and slowly there were just brands. But the multi-portfolio brand has really been kind of what we've seen take up suck the energy out of the Guelph community recently. So tell us a little bit about, how you guys come at the whole multi-brand portfolio. Obviously, it's a digital-first journey, and I also noticed in the film how you talked about licensee support, and that's a topic that's been really important at Guelph over the years. How are we working with our distributors and things like that? So tell us a little bit about the digital-first transformation.
Absolutely. So, part of our digital-first transformation journey was building a direct relationship with the international consumer. So today, most companies, most DTC brands do not have the ownership or direct relationship with their shopper. They're spinning up websites across the world. They have limited SKUs in a country and marketplace. They have potential brand dilution. We really got together with Global E because we felt that we wanted to have the full direct ownership. We wanted to understand who our customer was, where she or he was shopping, but then also take all of that data, and it would help us figure out which licensees we wanted to go after or distributors. So if, for instance, we were seeing a lot of success coming out of Italy into our US website, we could go and look for a distributor in Italy and figure out all the partners that were there. What we're trying to do, because our distributors are very important to us, our licensees are very important to us, they're the core of our business, is to really evolve them, help modernize them into what we describe as the DTC approach, or platform as a service. And so we've done exactly that with Global E, and they're exceeding our expectations, where consumers from around the world could order product from the US website, where we'll have the full assortment. We understand who he or she is, where they're coming from full control over global pricing and discounts, and also recognize higher margins. But we're not stopping there, because we believe now that we need to go further and really taking the marketer-distributor approach and evolving it. And really what we're focused on is engaging partners in international markets to develop and operate an e-commerce technology platform, all while leveraging our digital asset management system, our customer data platform. So you have Marquee, which we're the brand owners. You'd have a front-end technology platform working closely with our logistical partners in order to distribute product. But in order to do business with us, or you would have to utilize our customer data platform, utilize our digital asset management system, and utilize a front-end technology platform. So it's about working together, and we know that we are better together there.
Yeah, and just to jump in, I mean, it's something that those of you that have been in the audience for the last three Guelph events, we've talked a lot about this, like kind of who pays for the transformation of that wholesale partner in the UK or something like that. And I think that's one of the more articulate ways that I've heard it put. It really is becoming this kind of global e-commerce or global D2C platform as a service. So it makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure, Matthew, you'll weigh in on that later, because I know we've got another platform.
Well, look, it's exactly right. Marquee is willing to put up the website. We will build the capital and get behind it, and then find a technology platform, because we want subject matter experts. And what we've done here together, Matthew and I, to build an international business, it's really all based on the fact of Matthew's platform that he has developed. But you must be thinking we must have had something, even prior to Global E, which we'll get there. But international e-commerce has always been a focus for us. And for those of you who don't know me, I like to use a lot of sport metaphors. We're always hitting singles, no matter which organization I've worked at. And we want to build for the future, stay ahead, because our model is really to play to win. And we're always building for the future. So we're very methodical. We have a big portfolio. We have many, many brands, but we really wanted to crawl, walk, run. And so we started with BCBG, Motherhood and A Pea in the Pod, and right now we're exceeding our expectations with the Global E platform. But prior to Global E, our brands, when we acquired them, were using a legacy solution. And although it enabled some localization to their web stores, they really had limited international offering. They had no support for international payments, no ability to support the local MSRP, no localization expertise, no insights, and limited access to the EU and Australia. So therefore, we were not fully capitalizing on our potential. So we talk a lot about this, which is what we were looking for in an external cross-border e-commerce solution provider. It was simple for us. It was an end-to-end solution, right? We needed a great platform, but we also needed great people. For us, we are an asset-light organization. And although we have a couple hundred employees, we rely on a lot of our external partners to be part of our team. So Matthew and I talk about this a lot. It doesn't matter if the executive works at Marquee or works at Global E. At the end of the day, people make companies, companies don't make people, and the facts don't change. And we rely on Matthew's expertise, his team, their subject matter experts to deliver. And if we're delivering, we'll continue on and continue to grow as we are today.
Yeah, and one thing that we've talked a lot about at Guelph, and I know Jim's in the audience here, and he's kind of one of the leaders on the org design for Global. Tell us a little bit about just some ways that you've been empowering your internal employees. And, I mean, especially when you're looking across such a vast portfolio of brands, you've got a lot of people to inspire.
We do, and that's my job. My job is to influence others, to think about this from the centralized organization where where I can own the technology platform, bring it to each brand owner, and each brand team has their own directors of e-commerce. And if we can sell them on the idea, it becomes their idea and it's truly successful. So our goal is to simply influence it. The brand teams own the P&L. We work hand in hand because we'd like to have the subject matter and the expertise sitting inside of the central organization, and then put the subject matter experts individually who work on international within the brands to work closely with the Global E team to deliver the sales and the margin that we're expecting.
So to get back to your baseball analogy, you're a new age manager, not a Whitey Herzog anymore.
Correct.
You're And Aaron Boone, right? Hopefully you're.
Well, because look, for us and for most companies, it's about building organic growth, right? I never get concerned as a leader on what happened yesterday or what's happening by the hour. I think the great leaders in this industry are focused on their long-term strategy, but also their short-term.
Right.
And I think it's also something, as we started working together, right? Every brand, obviously, that we work with, I would say independently yet cohesively. I think every time we have a conversation, it's about the entire strategy within the group, but it's also operating independently to help, each one of those groups continue to be successful in their own way that their own brand speaks to their own consumer, right? So I think the approach, although somewhat, brought together, is one that is uniquely looked at and viewed. And we'll get into some of, I'd say one of the other, major elements for Jonathan, which is how do we keep these brands profitable, right? International is a big endeavor. There's a lot of cost involved. How do we manage that cost? How do we manage both growth and profitability expectations in a very, let's just say, sophisticated way, right? So it is a crawl, walk, run approach that Marquee's had, and obviously looking forward to where we continue that, which we'll talk about.
So for us to be profitable and to be efficient, there was really simply just two requirements. Number one is all of the Marquee websites today are on the Shopify platform, and we're thrilled with our performance there. We needed a scalable, out-of-the-box, right? We're asset light, really easy to be working within the Shopify system, and it was really suitable for all of our brands. Number two was to go out and find a Shopify-approved cross-border e-commerce partner, but more importantly, that had a data-backed approach and could be an extension of our team. That is a very key element for Marquee and doing business with Marquee. It's more than just launching a platform, but we truly rely on the executives that are at these companies to help us grow. And without them, we can't grow.
So Matthew, you've had some things going on with Shopify. You want to kind of tell us a little bit about what was going on during the whole IPO?
Sure. No, I think it's a great partner, that we've had. Obviously, it's one that's spanned for many years as the business has evolved. Without a doubt, I think international has been a big focus for every brand that we speak to, right? So I think it's not, just about the partner approach that we've had with Shopify, which has been a great one. It is one that we are enabling in an exclusive arrangement with Shopify, their overall portfolio of brands to help them break down barriers to international, which has been incredible, right? I think that's been definitely something that's been helping evolve that segment and focus, more importantly in my eyes, for the international market within the specific platform on Shopify. But I think it spans beyond that. I think it's something that there are many platforms out there across our agnostic approach, which is one that we continue to support, continue to evolve, because we have to. We know that brands and consumers are living everywhere, but we know that brands continue to evolve their international strategies in many different areas and arenas, and platforms is just one of those examples. So it's been a great partnership so far, for sure, a key important strategic one for us and supporting that journey. But yeah.
Yeah, and we'll definitely hear more about that as we move into next year. Guelph LA is in mid-February out in LA, and we should have more on that topic then. I'll leave it at that. But we're going to wrap up today with an innovation showcase, again, that's going to focus on this international customer journey, how it's changed since the pandemic. So yeah, tell us a little bit about how you guys have used the customer journey. And again, different portfolio brands, different customers in there. There's some challenges, but there's obviously a lot of data too.
Yeah. And I'll start, with some of the journey experiences, right? Just to walk you through, I think when Jonathan and I first started talking, it was we need to start to localize. We need to start to fill in some of those gaps. We need to put our brand first in everything that we do, from the overall brand to the overall tone of voice to everything in the way that we talk to our customer. It needs to be brand-centric, right? So I think the second that the customer hits the site is the first enablement and time that we engage with the client, right? Letting them know that they can shop, driving down things like bounce rate, et cetera. And then I think localized pricing is also something that is an extremely strategic approach that we have. I know that, for example, coming out of the gate with Marquee Canada, having some, overall approaches into brick and mortar, leveraging things like fixed prices is extremely important, right? How do you make sure that whatever the price strategy is into that market is one that is crystal clear to your consumer, whether they're shopping in market or whether they're shopping cross-border. So the ability to help localize that out of the gate has been the initial venture so far.
Yeah, I find it very interesting because if you just take our Motherhood division, we had, when we acquired the company, there were stores up in Canada. They had their e-commerce site. It was slowly being discontinued right before the acquisition. We brought it in. we got together, Matthew and I, and we'll do more business in this year than we did all when we had our own direct website that was sitting up in Canada with brick and mortar stores. So it was really about that we knew the consumer was there, and clearly in the world of maternity, there's a new customer every day. That's one of the greatest things about that business, and certainly the toughest part is that we lose her after 12 months. The nice part about a portfolio like Marquee, the real key there is that customer data platform, that we can move that customer who was shopping into that was a mom shopping on maternity, to move her into home, or she's thinking about date night and wants to wear BCBG or so on. So we're really stepping into that arena there.
Very cool. And then I think other elements, right? I think when you start to look, and I touched on, the overall profitable approach to international, right? How and what does that approach look like? How are you getting after international? I think, what are those barriers that we need to help you break down? And I think when you look at the experience, it just continues to go down. So we need to drive an overall conversion tool for and with Marquee Brands, right? So every brand that they're looking at, every international customer that's hitting the site, how do we make sure that shipping, we all know, is a barrier to trade? You've heard it a million times over and over again in the conference. How do you position it? What carriers and matrix do you mix in? What are the right converting tools in each and every single market that you're going to service, which needs to be looked at independently, right? And then I think you get into duty and tax, which is an overall real challenge, right? It's an international cross-border element that has a cost to it. What is the right strategy in that local market? When do you build in, VAT experience? When do you separate duty and tax? And what are all those strategies that speak to that consumer and most importantly can convert, him or her in that moment, right? So we need to make sure we maximize on it, and obviously we work very closely. I'd say Jonathan and myself worked many hours together on this, but it's something that we want to make sure that when we do get the brand set up for that launch, that we've got them set up with a data-driven model that sets them up for success day one. And that's most important, because there will be tweaking, there will be fine-tuning that the teams continue to optimize and talk about as the partnership evolves, but it's really all very much built around success out of the gate once we launch any one of them.
Yeah, and look, I think it's all built about removing the friction, right, from the experience, right? If we're really putting the customer at the center, we want to make this as easy as possible. They don't want to do the math on the duties and how much they're paying, and they want to be able to pay in their preferred local, and we couldn't do that before, and so now we can.
Yeah. And then I think this is just an example, right? I think we talked a bit about Canada, we talked a bit about duty inclusive pricing and strategies, and this is the level of detail that merchants and brands need to continue to evolve into, right? And this is just one example of a Japan case study, right? When you look at the overall market specifically, it's no different than the way that we look at every single market that we're going to help a brand, transact into, right? So whether it be your traditional Canada, UK, Australia, English speaking, which typically is the focus for many US brands, or whether it be then opening up and evolving that overall international strategy and guidance into markets that we know can be successful, right? So not only do we have an office that is local, that is obviously on the ground feeding intelligence and guidance to us within Tokyo, but I think it's also important that we're leveraging our expertise not only in Tokyo on the ground within Japan, but I think also taking the data and the insights that we've learned from our global portfolio, which is massive, right? We have a lot of data that we sit on, we leverage that data, and it's an engine that helps brands be successful, and one that we look at everything from VAT, from duty and tax, where that comes in, how your AOV sits into that. And then, of course, we're giving it to Jonathan and saying, sign off on it. And please do. And if you don't, then I'm going to try to say it a different way so that you do adopt it. But no, it's good because it is ultimately the brand decision, and it's something that you're going to continue to own, yet we're here to help guide and help do all of that legwork and the heavy lifting for them. And then I think when you look at the overall approach to international, I think we all know the world is getting more complicated, right? I think Australia, set the tone when it came to GST. I think New Zealand fell in, Norway, Switzerland, et cetera. And then all of a sudden you start to see the evolvement within, the UK, with Brexit, with IOSS in Europe, with all of the complexities that brands are facing. It's just how do you continue to stay ahead of this ever so changing world and making sure that not only are you reaching your international customer, but you're doing so in a compliant way, in a profitable way, and in a way that's going to help grow your overall business on a global scale. And then finally, I'd say, as I look at some of the tools and the enablement tools that we have, I think it's something that we work hand in hand with Jonathan's team. To be honest, I'd say our team does a lot more of this, but we continue to build out. I think as we started our venture with Marquee, it was very much heavily reliant on our team, right? And it will continue to have that overall, element of a managed services piece that will really help the brands leverage and use these tools. But it's also just as important as, Jonathan builds out his team, really evolves his team. You get a lot more focus on international, where they may want to start using the tools. They may want to start making changes on their own. And of course, we need to be able to enable both. So this is just an example of one of those approaches that we use to do that.
Yeah, look, and we rely on, certainly Matthew's team, partly because he's got the information across other partners out there. We can understand what's happening in the country. We can move quicker. But I don't know if you want to cover anything on.
No, I think it just continues to evolve, right? I think it ties into the overall story, and
Sure.
and I think we
Let's
talked
jump
about
back a couple slides back. You don't have to go back, but the data privacy piece that was in the lower right-hand corner of one of the right there, the personal private. So that came up at our Guelph dinner last night, and again, not something we've talked a lot about, but especially when you're dealing with a lot of different brand portfolio companies, obviously lots of different markets. We talked a little bit about your internal team. What have you guys had to do to kind of make sure that you're in compliance with all these evolving data compliancy and privacy rules?
Sure. So for us, we have engaged with a company called OneTrust, who is going to help us manage that, and we'll be compliant on all of our sites. All of that information will feed through our customer data platform. We'll work with our other partners, whether it's our ESPs or triggered or banding card, to make sure that we're always protecting the customer first. And the other thing that we're doing is really working within our ERP to make sure that we're not holding that information with our partners, and to making sure that we're being as transparent as possible through our privacy policies.
And Matthew, I guess you're hearing that from a lot of your clients across the board, whether it's the more recent focus on the mid-market folks, as well as the traditional enterprise brands you guys work with.
That's it. It's a mix. It's small, mid, and enterprise. I think when you look at it, everybody has a unique set of challenges that, when it comes to data privacy, when it comes to being, compliance in each and every single region, whether it be GDPR or whether or not. And I think the overall approach from each brand is different, right? I think there's a journey to become even, specifically speaking about GDPR compliant, right? But there's not a certificate you're going to get. There's not something that's going to say, hey, I'm compliant. It's how and where is your journey overall to compliance? Where does that sit? And how am I on my way to have built out overall views on my data quality? And that's something that, of course, brands are either equipped to do or not. And I think when you look at that journey, where that begins, when that begins, it's a focused topic, and it's one that we continue to help brands of both scales that are and are not.
Yeah, and we haven't covered that as much, so thank you guys for that little timeout.
That's another
comment there.
section.
But yeah, let's finish up with some of the results and the path ahead, and then we'll try to do some Q&A, and Bree's here with the mic. So so tell me a little bit about all the good news.
Yeah, so look, none of this all matters if we're not making our numbers, and so we've had impressive results so far working with our Globally platform. Right? Look at these conversion rates up triple digits, number of orders up triple digits here, and our revenue up 59% and 80% respectively. And BCBG month over month continues to see a 28% increase in conversion. And so we're penetrating from markets that we've never really did much business with, which is coming from the EU and Australia. We've had the most impressive results coming from our borders through Mexico and through Canada, and we are seeing a significant uplift. So we're quite pleased with the results here. So what's next for Marquee? Matthew and I were chatting about this a couple of weeks ago, where how do we further localize what we're doing in each country? So if you're in Japan or China or a different country, how do we engage our sites so that they're localized in the native language? That's next for us as we're working there. The second part of this is we do all of this. All of these results are driven through 0% marketing. We do not market today. Obviously, we market in our US websites, and they're coming in from overseas, but we do not market to the localized market across the borders. We are going to be working on that, thinking about our budgets and how much money we could put out there, and think about dynamic ads or even branding overseas. And then, as I said, we started off slow, but we have many other brands in the portfolio. So what's next for us is to not only continue to grow organically within BCBG and Motherhood and A Pea in the Pod, but then how do we work together, Matthew and I, on Martha Stewart, Ben Sherman, and so on.
No, for sure. And I think even just to touch on that, I think it does span on and this is that crawl, walk, run element, right? Like the first crawl step was to get a localized experience up, right? So that you can start to build data. And then now you can start to make some informed decisions, whether it be translating a site where it makes sense. We all know Germany and France is very common, but is that common for you as the brand, right? To translate into that market, and does it make sense with where you're, obviously at in your journey for international? And then when you look at digital marketing and other elements, right? If you're going to build an investment into translating your site, how how and when do I pump in money into a market, and then what channels am I obviously going to be promoting, right? Is it your typical, channels, whether it be Google Shopping, Instagram, and Facebook, or are there other channels that are local to that market where we can start to leverage and help those brands grow in a more strategic way, leveraging what we know works into that market. So I think that's where you start to get, and then it becomes a conversation of, we started with this, which was the distributor approach, right? Like, how do we then tie that strategy in to make sure that all of these elements are playing well together, complementing each other, and then obviously the digital part, which obviously we have a heavy involvement in with Marquee, is really playing well with those distributors to be able to help them be successful. So I think as you pull it all together, whether it's even standing up a site, like this is all stuff that's super important as these brands start to really sophisticate their international journey in that run and sprint method.
And I think so much goes into this prior to launching it. I think about when we acquired Destination Maternity at the end of December 2019, we didn't launch with Global E until almost July. We sat every day for 5 months ideating, strategizing what we wanted this to be, what the team would look like on each side to make sure the resources. So, when we think about content, that will happen as well. We will sit together, we will figure out who's doing the work, how do we leverage Matthew's team and the expertise there, what do we want this to look like, our creative directors and so on. So we really want to make sure we're building that broad implication of a plan before we actually get started, because that's how you deliver the results.
Got it. Well, you guys have delivered. Any questions? I know we've got maybe one or 2 minutes, but we'll pick back up on this after lunch, this whole idea of the distributor and how important it is to work with your global wholesale partners. So why don't we say thanks to these guys? I really appreciate you guys being up here today, and then I'll hang on the stage for the next section.
Great, thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, guys.
So I got to give the mic back.